We're back talking about Tim Kennedy because I think we need to revisit something, especially as we're seeing the remembrance of over a year ago of the pullout that we saw go down on television across every bit of media that we could ever imagine, especially with the tragic lives that were lost. And obviously with that became the narrative of what we saw of Tim Kennedy and what he had done over there. In that video that I did had about 130,000 views, and I would think it was justice to revisit this because I think as the smoke clears, it is important to retouch on topics as the history gets written and is more defined. And that's becoming more important because Tim Kennedy, the guy that you may know as the UFC fighter, the Green Beret, the entrepreneur, the person that is just hated because he's on Joe Rogan a couple times, but it looks like he is now clearing the air. But I want to talk about what we previously annotated, and it was this. Back in 2021, during the pullout in August of last year, Tim Kennedy had a bunch of memes that were being made about him over on military meme pages all over the internet, where people were calling him out, saying that he was being reckless as he was trying to save people that were over there that were trying to get on these aircraft. Some of this included getting people through the gates that actually didn't have the appropriate credentialing to get through and were not cleared by certain authorities, or the fact that he was trying to rush people through the entrance entirely by bringing busloads to the gate. As a result of this, people were saying that Tim Kennedy had made the regulations tighter as far as the security goes, and the fact that they were now going to have to be more stringent on this. That should have gone in last night. Thanks to Tim, they aren't. And now I can't guarantee they make it through the gate. Another one says, I didn't know it was him at the time, but the bus delay derailed an extensive ad hoc operation that was specific for SOF, Special Operation Forces, linked refugees. This included my own guys involved in this effort. All had civs in the pipeline with all necessary documentation, and we had pushed up by name rosters to filter out any hangers-on. They never made it from the link-up point because that Jack Bleep more or less closed the gate on us. And at the same time, people thought Tim was being disingenuous because he was a member of the Oakley sponsorship program, and one of the refugees that was in front of him was wearing one of the book bags, and some people thought this was a ploy for like some kind of propaganda to make Oakley look good. Now, with all that covered, we are now back to this story where a new documentary has come out, which I believe is created or been produced by somebody over at Save Our Allies, which is the organization which Tim Kennedy actually went with, and he has always said that he worked with them essentially from the start of this. It has never been something he's done on his own accord. Now you're going to see a couple maps, a couple things that were shown in the documentary, which I believe are fair use because it gives context and will actually correct some of the narrative that was put out there. Now, from this, Tim likes to lay this out, and other people in this documentary as well, that the Kabul airport actually had just the perimeter. And they were saying that essentially when they were surrounded by every bit of T-band out there, that essentially they were already in a losing battle. And the fact that they said that this was actually being transferred from the Department of Defense, which was primarily in charge of everything that happened in this region, to the State Department. Now, Tim and others in this documentary say that this pretty much made the airport be treated as like an embassy per se. So it didn't have the same rules of engagement, didn't have the same kind of criteria, didn't have the same leadership style. So essentially this was kind of setting us up for like you get this small block to do whatever playtime you need, but you're out after that. Now, from this, Tim has a map of showing where every single Taliban person was at, and was saying that essentially that those points were locked down. But he does say that there were some points throughout this entire area that were not able to be observed, and some of them included these small routes and pathways through different villages, which were including these refugees having to climb through feces, sewage, things like that, in order to even get to even where he was at. To give more scary aspects of this, he also annotates that many of the members that were on his list of which he was trying to bring through were already on the list of the Taliban, which were essentially going to be flagged immediately and were going to possibly have their lives taken. And a lot of this documentary goes into the heartbreaking idea that there were children and women being executed throughout their time waiting to go into the airport, and essentially it was just because the Taliban knew that they couldn't do anything, that the military were only to set that perimeter, not go past it, and that was essentially the rules that they were given. Now, from what it looks like from the map that Tim has placed out in this documentary, he does have them go through that sewage, and it's through a side gate. Now, what he says in this documentary is that there was a part of the gate or some kind of fence or whatever that had one bolt that kept it in place. And he was like, there's a weak point. We can get people through this. And he knew a lot of his targets were high priority for the Taliban because they were interpreters, etc. But they also noted that there were refugees that were to include orphans. And on top of that, some of the people that they met on the way over into country where they were going to save their family. Now, according to this documentary, Tim says that there were multiple lists that crossed from the Department of Defense, Department of State, the Taliban, Afghan government. All these different lists were out there, and essentially that none of them matched. So everyone had their guys that they were trying to get. Everyone was trying to get a hookup here, a hookup there, and trying to make sure that this was going to go off without a hitch. However, none of these organizations really talked. Now, according to Tim, they brought those buses that he talks about in that video, and they bring them over into the area where the gate's at. And he starts to bring them through. They had some people come through, and then whoever was the colonel overall in charge of this operation comes over and questions what they're doing. And he makes a direct order, which Tim and others in this documentary are saying that it was kind of like an affirmative, this is my mission. This is what I'm here to do. You guys are impeding on it. Get away. You don't have authority to do this. They try and fight back, and they're like, some of these people have passports that are U.S. passports. Some of them have green card holder status. Some of them have other documents which could definitely make them able to come through the gates. Why can't we vet them properly and put them through? But again, Tim wants to annotate here that there are various lists, which is kind of messy. Now, according to the doc, what happens is at this point, the colonel walks off and under his breath says, this is not the Tim Kennedy show. And that is pretty much the premise of why he would not be okay with some of these people coming in, and felt like he was exercising his power as a social media influencer, entrepreneur, a Green Beret, whatever it was. And that's why he was making this decision. Now, obviously, we've heard the soldier, government side of this as we saw that play out last year. Now we're kind of hearing a better version, I would say, a more detailed version of what Tim's saying in this documentary. And it kind of makes sense to me why we might have seen this narrative get spun. Did the person that was that colonel pass that information down into the leadership channels and essentially pass this narrative that Tim was this rambunctious guy that was just out there running and gunning like the Wild Wild West, and he was pretty much a hazard to the mission? That's what I could say. Maybe that was put out, unless someone physically, visually saw this. That might have been the case that we could see from this, and I'm speculating on that. However, there are more questions because the documentary does not list this colonel. I'm sure that this colonel was one of the few colonels that was out there that you could have picked out and said it was Colonel Smith or whatever. So why did they call him out in this documentary? Maybe for trying not to be sued. I don't know. But, if the statements were true, if what they saw is what they saw, then I don't see what the legal bounding of that would have been. But I kind of wish that they did annotate who this was. And even Angry Cops on his story did talk about this as well, saying, why did we not find out who the colonel was? Why would these departments trust these non-government organizations? Was the bite too big to chew off for the government and the State Department and the Department of Defense? I think we can say yes. I find it crazy that we were tasking somebody like the Save Our Allies as some of the people that were like, we trust you to go get these people. I'm like, why didn't we make a plan, a contingency like that? That should just be like a bonus extra plan. It feels like that was our plan A. That a lot of us had a lot of faith and optimism in our idea that we could plan a major evolution like this and have this actually work out and have enough planes, have enough people to screen, have enough security. But it really, looking back, I think, for the most of us can say it didn't go off without a hitch. We've lost a lot of lives over there during this time, obviously, and it's a very tragic ending to that story. But I do want to finish this note off that the Save Our Allies documentary that you're seeing here, you should go check it out on Amazon Prime. They do say that they're kind of upset that the narrative of these people that are now coming to America, how come we have not followed up on their story? How come we're not trying to do more for them? Why is this falling off the radar of so many, yet it's such a, most recent memory of a year ago now, and it feels like it's so distant, like it's more than a year ago. So let me know what your thoughts are as far as the pullout and what happened. Do you agree with it, disagree with it? As the smoke clears, what do you think about Tim Kennedy's situation? Do you think he deserved to have all that hate in the initial side of this? Or do you think that it's something that, we had to wait and see, and obviously we're seeing some of the clarity kind of come out now? Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys have other topics, suggestions, whatever you want me to cover, please make sure you guys hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.